We've seen that through auto-generation and inheritance that Java has all of these ways to help us not have to write extra code that we don't need. It may be a very verbose language, but it definitely is one that tries to help us out with using that verbosity to our advantage. So I'm going to show you one more trick, and I waited until this particular moment because you really should see it in context. And it's the enhanced for loop. It sounds really fancy, but it's a huge help in terms of readability and clarity. So oftentimes we want to loop over a set of data from the very beginning to the end. And this happens so often, and I'll show you the for loop that we normally do this for. Int I equals 0. Now in this particular case, I'm going to want to loop through the amount of jokes that I know. So as long as I is less than the jokes I know size, and then I++. So we see this all the time. We're starting at 0, we're going to go through the entire length of that particular collection or array, and we're going to increment by 1. And again, the thing I'm going to do right in the beginning is I'm going to say, okay, I want to get one of those elements out of there. I'll actually say joke equals the position or index I. And so now I'm actually going to say that particular joke. There's a method somewhere else that does that. And again, we do this all the time where we're saying, look, I have a collection. I want to get one of the elements out of the collection, and then I want to go through it and do something to each one of those elements. So this happens so often that Java gives us a new way of describing that that's way less complex, and also prevents us from doing what we call off by one errors, where if I don't particularly do this correctly, I could try to get something outside the collection size. Again, it only works for Java collections. It does not work for arrays. You have to actually have objects. And I'll show you how this piece of code looks with an enhanced for loop. And you can see the difference about how much easier it is to read. Instead, what we're going to say is for. So it begins just like a normal for loop. But instead of doing this 1, 2, 3, 4-part thing to actually say I want to do something for each piece, I can just say that there's going to be a joke in my jokes I know array list. Isn't that much easier to read? What this is saying is, for each of the elements in jokes I know, pull out one of them and call it joke. Do that for every single one of the ones that are inside of this particular array list. So now I can just say joke. And this piece of code is equivalent to this piece of code, but it's much more reasonable. Sometimes people will refer to this as a for each loop, as in I want to do something for each of the elements. But the proper name is the enhanced for loop. So use enhanced for loops whenever you can with collections. It'll be much easier to read and much easier to perform a loop that is just doing something for every element inside of it.